I'm not usually the kind of person who holds a grudge. You can't successfully manage a network of convenience stores without being at least somewhat likable. In fact, if you ever met me, you'd probably notice right away how friendly I come across. But if someone wrongs me, that's a whole different matter. I don't believe in petty acts of revenge. I go for full-blown payback. Need an example? Sure. I used to play rugby, and every now and then I still lace up for a game. I played as a lock, one of the big guys in the second row, tall, sturdy, and decently fast. There was this one match where I chased a high kick, eyes on the ball, when a massive loose head prop, jersey number 1, collided with me mid-jump. I crashed to the ground, messed up my shoulder, and ended up with a mild concussion. The referee dismissed it as accidental, but something about the way it happened didn't sit right with me. I was temporarily pulled out so the trainer could check on my shoulder, and once the team doctor gave the all-clear, I got back on the field. The moment I re-entered, the guy who hit me flashed the smug little grin. That was all the confirmation I needed. He knew what he did. So I made a decision. In the next scrum, I gave him a not-so-gentle reminder that I wasn't going to let it slide. He probably couldn't tell it was my fist that connected, and the referee didn't catch it either, but that wasn't the end of it. Fate, as it happened, gave me another opening. Their number 1 got possession of the ball and started to lumber forward. He didn't get far before going down, and as the ruck formed, he managed to set the ball back nicely for his scrum half. While they were setting up, I noticed an opportunity. I surged up under my opposite number in the ruck, unbalancing him and sending him flying into their number 5. That player toppled directly onto the arm of the loose head prop. Bad luck for him, his hand was right on top of the ball, and the weight of both players came down at once. His forearm fractured on the spot. By the time things calmed down, I was nursing my shoulder again and sporting fresh cleat marks across my face and neck. No one saw anything out of the ordinary, and when their number 1 was escorted off the field, he shot me a suspicious glare. But since I was also receiving medical attention at the time, he couldn't connect the dots. That didn't bother me. I knew what had happened, and that was enough. I'm not foolish enough to start personal wars. This time, the stars aligned. I didn't plan it all out. The moment just happened, and it turned out better than I expected. Honestly, I thought I'd just slow him down and get a clean hit on him later in the match. But I think you get the picture. Cross me and I won't forget. Now, when it comes to running my stores, I keep a sharp eye on the numbers. I know exactly what items sell when they sell and what kind of cash flow should be moving through the tills. I've developed a knack for spotting anything out of place. Most of my employees are women, some are students, some are single mothers, others are married. They're not typically folks with tons of extra spending money. So I try to reduce the temptation to steal by offering generous employee discounts and letting them take home expired food as long as it's strictly for their own use. My goal is to make theft an unappealing option. The stores are doing well, so I pay more than average. But it's the extras that really make their paychecks stretch. So when I noticed my wife pulling large sums of cash from our joint account, it raised a red flag. We're financially comfortable, and I've never minded her spending. After all, that's what our earnings are for. But she almost never uses cash. We don't have credit cards. She typically sticks to her debit card. There are 2 things you should know about me. First, regardless of how that rugby story makes me sound, I'm a careful strategist. In rugby, you act in the heat of the moment. But in real life, I plan meticulously. That's why I chose to invest in stores that were sure to make a profit, not ones just around the corner for convenience. Second, I loved my wife deeply. So before jumping to wild conclusions about what the cash was for, I felt I owed it to both of us to find out the truth. Sure, I'll admit it, I was already leaning toward suspicion. That's just part of my nature. When I feel cornered or betrayed, I assume the worst. But I also have a rational side that stops me from going off the rails. There could have been plenty of reasons for the withdrawals. Maybe she had picked up a gambling habit. Maybe she was experimenting with something like marijuana. Maybe, just maybe, she was stashing away money to surprise me with something or preparing to leave. The big question was, how should I handle this? All my stores are fitted with surveillance systems, CCTV over the registers, almost impossible to notice unless you're really looking. But did I want to bring the kind of monitoring into my home? Even for someone like me, bugging the house felt like stepping too far. I figured it was wiser to wait until she left before doing some investigating on my own. I needed concrete evidence before making any decisions. With my stores running efficiently and my office team handling the administrative work, I had the luxury of time to strategize. To clear my head, I strolled along High Street and found myself wandering into a phone store. I've always had a soft spot for tech gadgets, and they happened to be advertising software that could transfer all SIM card contacts to a computer for backup. That sparked a thought, maybe that could be my way in. If I could retrieve all the data from our phones and save it to the computer, I might uncover something useful hidden in the contacts. That evening, I installed the software at home. "Lisa, can I use your phone for a bit?" I asked casually. She looked at me, a bit guarded. "Why do you need it?" "I just picked up this new software that backs up all your contacts. If anything ever happens to your phone, you can restore everything on a new one without the hassle of re-entering all the numbers. It's pretty useful." She hesitated for a moment. "I think my battery's flat," she said. "That's not a problem," I replied. "It connects via USB, so your phone will power up through the computer. Actually, if your battery is faulty, it might even mess with your data. This will prevent any loss." After a slight pause, she reluctantly passed me her phone. I created a new folder on the computer, titled it Phone Numbers, and saved everything from her device. "There you go," I told her. "All backed up in a folder with your name. If you ever need to check something, just open it." "Is it password protected?" she asked. "Nope," I replied. "Just open access in case you ever need it." I smoothly changed the subject, pretending to browse for vintage cars online while she settled into her evening TV shows. I had my eye on a classic E-Type Jaguar. If the perfect one showed up, I might finally splurge. Eventually, Lisa grew tired of the TV drama and headed to the kitchen to make some tea. The moment she left the room, I quickly duplicated the file and emailed a copy to myself at the office. Normally, I never bothered with her phone bills. They were paid automatically and had never raised any red flags. But this time felt different. I pulled the folder from the drawer and brought it to work the next day. My first move was to scan through her contact list. It didn't take long before something jumped out. The name Mark Donovan. As soon as I saw it, everything clicked. A quick glance at her phone logs confirmed it. She was calling him multiple times a day. Mark Donovan wasn't just another face in the convenience store industry, he was also a footballer. And for someone like me who lived and breathed rugby, that only made things sting more. Now I had to prove what I already suspected. Lisa was seeing someone else, and worse, she might be using my own money to do it. I knew I couldn't follow them myself. I had the flexibility to take time off, sure, but I was too noticeable. There was no way I'd go unnoticed trying to tail them around town. Hiring a private investigator seemed like the only logical step. I flipped through the yellow pages and found a detective agency in a town roughly 10 miles away. I avoided the firm that handled my store's security. Although they were top tier, I suspected Donovan might use them too, and I wasn't taking any chances with that conflict of interest. I scheduled a meeting and brought a couple of Lisa's photos along. The investigator had the air of a former police officer, sharp, experienced, maybe a bit smug. He seemed successful, though he could have been bluffing for all I knew. That didn't matter. I didn't need Sherlock Holmes, I just needed evidence. He estimated it would take about a week and asked for a retainer of £1,000. I paid without a second thought. On the drive back, I noticed my fuel was low and pulled into a small petrol station. As I filled the tank, I glanced around and realized the place was a hidden gem just waiting for the right investor. When I stepped inside to pay, it became clear that it was run by an older couple, probably in their 60s. We got to talking, and soon they revealed they were hoping to retire but hadn't taken any steps to sell the place yet. I asked how much they wanted, and after a quick mental calculation, I realized their asking price was about £250,000 below market value. I recommended they get a formal valuation. Before leaving, I handed them my business card. "Look," I told them, "I'm in business, sure, but I've got to be able to look at myself in the mirror every day. I might have a bit of a mean streak, but I don't take advantage of people, and I definitely don't lie. Well, not often." 1 week later, I received 2 crucial phone calls. The first was from Mr. and Mrs. Harrison. They sounded almost embarrassed as they told me the valuation confirmed what I had suggested. They seemed genuinely surprised when I accepted their price immediately and asked for their solicitor's information to proceed with the deal. The second call, though, was much harder to take. It was the PI. He confirmed Lisa had been unfaithful, but not just with Mark Donovan. She had also met another man for lunch and later that same day spent the evening with Mark while I was away at training. I instructed the investigator to continue digging and gather more details. Later on, I took a drive to settle accounts with the private investigator and to check out the property I was eyeing for purchase. He handed me a set of photographs showing Lisa with Mark and another man. The images, taken in public, didn't provide definitive proof of cheating, but the implications were strong enough. I paid him another £1,000 and instructed him to dig deeper, get me hard evidence that could stand in court. I needed undeniable confirmation of the affair and the second man's identity. I kept up the appearance of a normal routine for the next week, still fulfilling my role as a husband in the bedroom. Physical intimacy was part of the act. Lisa didn't behave any differently, showing no more or less interest. As usual, anything beyond the basics was off limits midweek. I wasn't too worried about infections since protection was always used. Lisa had long refused birth control pills, saying they caused her to gain weight. By the time Friday rolled around, the investigator delivered the final pieces of the puzzle. The mystery man turned out to be Paul Daniels, a sales representative working for a supplier that sold small convenience items like sewing kits and rolls of insulation tape to stores like mine. Lisa had visited his apartment twice that week. As for Mark Donovan, the evidence showed the two of them engaging in a heated encounter in a remote parking lot during one of my training sessions. At that point, it was crystal clear my marriage had reached its end. There was no salvaging what had been broken. But timing mattered. I knew Lisa's cycle well and figured she'd soon be out of commission for a few days. That gave me the perfect window to launch the first phase of my plan. I took some chilies from one of the shops and extracted their juice with care. Then I carefully applied it to the inner fabric of a few pairs of her underwear, the bulkier ones she reserved for that time of the month. I wasn't finished yet. Using a hypodermic needle, I injected a small amount of the same juice into her tampons. I'd heard about guys using wintergreen oil for pranks like this, but that substance carried a strong scent. Chili juice was more discreet. I wasn't completely sure it would work, but it felt like a decent gamble. Mark Donovan played regularly in 5-side games at the local recreation center where I sometimes joined in for fitness. While my ball control was often the butt of jokes, I made up for it with stamina and speed. We rotated goalkeeping duties so everyone got their turn, and my background in rugby gave me an advantage when defending the net. Donovan was cocky, convinced he could outmaneuver me easily. He was definitely skilled with the ball, but every time he closed in while I was in goal, he couldn't score. He made a couple of sly attempts to kick me, but I laughed them off, making sure others noticed. When the teams switched roles, he tried to rattle me, trash-talking as he moved in aggressively. I responded with a subtle tap to his ankle, making it seem unintentional. Later, when he had control of the ball, I collided into him hard enough to knock him over. I helped him up, pretending to be apologetic, blaming my lack of experience with the quicker format. He didn't take it well, but the rest of the team backed me up. They'd seen him act dirty earlier. In the following match, Donovan escalated things. He launched into a wild tackle clearly aimed at injuring me. I saw it coming and timed my response. As he lunged, his foot landed where my ankle would have been, but instead my boot swung upward and caught his knee. The impact twisted his leg unnaturally. The crunch of damaged ligaments and cartilage was impossible to miss, followed by his agonized cries. Feigning concern, I apologized sincerely and insisted it was an accident. The others didn't buy his outrage. They had seen the whole build-up and held him responsible. We called for an ambulance, and I even offered to drive his car home, pretending to be helpful. He refused, but by then the harm was already done. Back at home, the effects of my sabotage were becoming evident. Lisa was clearly uncomfortable from the tampered undergarments and sanitary products. After a couple of days, she went to the doctor. Naturally, the doctor had no clue about the real cause and prescribed her a topical cream, which she discreetly tucked into her handbag. I had purposely avoided tampering with all of her tampons to keep the pattern less obvious. When her period ended and I returned home from football one night, I found her sitting on the couch, visibly enraged. Her face was tight with fury. "You disgusting snake. Who's the woman?" she snapped. I blinked in confusion. "What are you talking about? Don't pretend you don't know. You gave me a disease." "Who is she?" she yelled. "I'll make sure you lose everything. I'm going to ruin you." Remaining calm, I simply said it wasn't me. Maybe it was Mark Donovan or Paul Daniels. Her reaction was instant, like she'd been punched in the gut. All the anger drained from her expression, replaced by pure shock. You knew?" she stammered. Without exchanging a single word, I reached into my briefcase and handed her the private investigator's report. My voice was cold and emotionless as I told her to pack her belongings and leave my house immediately. Her eyes filled with tears and she broke down completely. In desperation, she cried out, asking where she was supposed to go. I remained unmoved, telling her that it was no longer my concern. I warned her that if she had passed something on to me, she would get nothing in return, absolutely nothing. My anger had reached a boiling point. As I had mentioned earlier, Lisa had always refused to use contraceptive pills, fearing they might cause weight gain. So we relied entirely on condoms for protection. If she had contracted anything, that could only mean she had been intimate with those men without protection. The thought disgusted me. It served her right. I stormed into the kitchen, grabbed a roll of trash bags, and marched upstairs to her bedroom. I shouted that I'd help her pack, then began sweeping everything from her drawers into the bags without the slightest concern for what I was tossing in. I didn't bother sorting or folding, just stuffed her belongings in as carelessly as possible. Once all her things were packed, I carried the bags to her car, took her keys, removed the house key from the ring, and shut the door behind her. I was seething. I grabbed a beer from the fridge and collapsed into the recliner, overwhelmed by a storm of emotion. Though I had known about her affair, seeing it spelled out in that report was like a dagger to the chest. I felt gutted. That night, I drank heavily, trying to drown the pain. The next morning came with a surprising lack of a hangover, likely a benefit of staying in shape. I headed to work feeling emotionally drained. I completed my regular duties, scheduled a meeting with my solicitor, then closed my office door and sat quietly, trying to plan my next move. Surprisingly, I didn't feel the urge to retaliate against Lisa, Donovan, or Daniels. Instead, I just felt hollow. My mood didn't go unnoticed. My staff picked up on it immediately, and soon enough, Big Mary, the store's unofficial counselor, came in to talk. Mary, in her late 50s, had a wealth of life experience and wasn't one to let things slide. She carried the tough-love motherly aura. She took a seat across from me, waiting in silence. I gave in quickly. I told her everything. Lisa had cheated and I had thrown her out. I assured her there was no reason to worry. I wasn't planning anything drastic. Mary wasn't convinced. She knew me too well. She warned me that given time, I might do something foolish enough to land myself in serious trouble. She asked who Lisa had been seeing. I told her, Mark Donovan and some guy named Daniels. Her eyes widened in alarm. She asked if I was planning any violence. I grinned and told her I'd already messed up Donovan's knee the night before. Her eyes went wide in panic. She asked if the police were involved. I chuckled, telling her we had collided during a five-side football match and he had come off worse. She didn't find it amusing. Mary gave me a hard stare and reminded me that a lot of people relied on me and that they genuinely enjoyed working for me. She said it was time for me to grow up and let go of the need to constantly prove myself. Customers came to my stores because they trusted me and appreciated the support I offered. Meanwhile, Donovan only stayed in business because I allowed him to trade on my turf. She pointed out that the vengeful side of me didn't align with the person people respected. I listened, a bit taken aback by her words. Mary laughed gently and told me everyone knew I was fair, but also that I didn't let people cross me without consequences. That's why I rarely had trouble. Still, she urged me to pull myself together, let go of my obsession with payback, and start living a little. The business would be just fine. She insisted this was the perfect time to shift my mindset. With Lisa out of the picture, she teased that women would be lining up to meet me now. If she were a bit younger, she said, she might be among them. I smiled and hinted that if it weren't for her husband Bert, things might have been different. Mary blushed, calling me a cheeky one and reminding me she was old enough to be my mother. I laughed and told her she'd started it. As Mary left, her words echoed in my mind. She was absolutely right. For years, I had poured everything into building my business, always feeling like I needed to prove my worth. Even my passion for rugby came from that same place, an internal push to validate myself. Sitting alone, I reflected on my life and came to the most important decision I had ever made. It was time to grow up and move on. That moment marked a real turning point for me. The desire for revenge simply vanished. Since then, my business has reached a size I'm content with. I'm able to manage it comfortably while staying closely connected to my team. I've also begun to open up socially. Rugby is still a part of my life, but now it's more about fitness and enjoyment. I've taken up dancing, joined a hiking group, and spend a good part of each summer exploring European trails. Through that, I've met some truly impressive women. It's amazing what fresh air and scenic views can do to foster meaningful international friendships. As for Lisa and her lovers, things didn't go as well for her in the divorce as she expected. I honored my commitment to the Harrisons and paid a fair price for their business. But to fund the buyout and renovate the petrol station, I had to secure a mortgage on my own property. The removal of the old fuel tanks alone drained a significant amount of money, and once the divorce was finalized, I was left with a pile of financial obligations. At least, that's what my accountant concluded. We had only been married for 5 years and never had children. My lawyer negotiated a clean break settlement that was based on my net worth. Lisa ended up with the house, but she also inherited the full responsibility of the mortgage. She had to return to the workforce and struggle to keep up with the payments. Eventually, she was forced to put the house on the market, and not long after, she vanished from my life. From what I can gather, she likely found someone new to depend on. I never could quite wrap my head around why she got involved with Donovan in the first place. Speaking of Donovan, his leg never truly healed and he now walks with the help of a cane. His football career is undeniably over. On top of that, he's gained a significant amount of weight. His luck only worsened when his car was broken into while parked outside the local recreation center that night. His briefcase and laptop were taken, and there was talk that a large sum of money also went missing, although he never mentioned that part to the authorities. The combination of his prolonged recovery and the missing laptop pushed him to sell a couple of his stores. Feeling a sense of responsibility for his injury, I decided to step in and offer some support by purchasing his 2 top-performing shops. He managed to get by with what remained until the police eventually recovered his laptop and some important papers. Now, I'm in the process of acquiring full ownership of his remaining assets to help him resolve his tax debt. Then there's Paul Daniels. He had been supplying miscellaneous items to various stores, though mine was never among them. At some point, news of his affair with Lisa made the rounds. Apparently, she wasn't the only married woman he had been involved with. When that detail surfaced, someone took matters into their own hands and gave Daniels a brutal beating. The police couldn't pinpoint the culprit as there were simply too many potential suspects, so no charges were filed. It seems that what goes around eventually comes back around. And to clear up any suspicion, it wasn't me. I had other plans that night, plans of a more intimate nature. When Mary heard what had happened, she didn't appear the least bit shocked. Maybe, just maybe, I've matured a little. Dear listeners, feel free to leave your thoughts in the comments below and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.